Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 16 millimeter Film Crew. I'm Cindy.
And I'm Dale.
You can watch us on YouTube. You can like and comment on our YouTube videos and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can listen to us everywhere podcasts are found at 16 millimeter Film Crew Podcast. And you can visit us on our website at www.16millimeterfilmcrew.com. This week, we watched F1 the movie, directed by Joseph Kosinski. Racing legend Sonny Hayes is coaxed into leading a struggling Formula One team and mentoring a young hotshot driver while chasing one last chance at redemption. This movie stars Brad Pitt, Damson Idris, Carrie Condon, and Javier Bardem. So I am actually gonna let Dale just like set us up for all those who don't know the F1 world, because I also don't know it that well.
Yeah.
Um, Set us up of like what this all entails, how you felt about the movie, how you felt like it lived up to the real racing, environment.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm a kind of, I guess, a motorsports junkie in a way, like as a fan, and I guess sim racing wise. But yeah, no, I kind of knew there was going to be contention as far as how authentic the movie would be to real racing. But as like a movie person, I knew not to go in. I kind of was already aware not to expect 100% accurate F1. I know when the movie did premiere or the drivers had their own private screening for it, drivers were concerned at it not being 100% accurate. But once again, this movie is not for it's not for people who are already fans of F1. It's more for people who they're trying to market to, which has been this whole modern kick the last couple of years of F1 with Drive to Survive, stuff like that. A lot more traditional older fans aren't interested in it because they think they over dramatize F1, but it draws younger fans in. Um in this movie, if you're also a racing fan, you know the track record a lot of racing movies has. Racing is one of the few sports movies that's really hard to get right. I mean, NASCAR side, we have Days of Thunder and Talladega Nights. Talladega Nights kind of we let slide because it's a lot more funny, and with Will Ferrell a lot more funny. Days of Thunder is kind of 80s cheesy in a way, but still with Tom Cruise in a couple of scenes, it's kind of iconic, like when he drives through the smoke through the wreck. Um, the inverse, you had Rush, which is an amazing movie about Mickey Lauda and James Hunt, their battle for the F1 title. Amazing movie by Ron Howard. Um, Chris Hemsworth, Daniel Burrow, amazing job with that. That one got critical acclaim, based on it, even though they kind of dramatized stuff. But, the closest movie I could draw a comparison to, based on beat for beat almost, is this movie very much reminds me of Driven. It was a Sylvester Stallone movie, came out 2001. He wanted to do an F1 movie, ended up doing IndyCar slash Champ Car, and it had nothing to do with the racing, but the same premise. Team struggling, young hotshot driver struggling. They coax the older driver in to mentor him. They have a rocky relationship, but at the end they get their shit together and he wins a race. But the execution was a lot more done, a lot well put together. For me as an F1 fan, I can pick up, I can see verbatimly the aspects in the story as they're happening. Sonny Hayes' story is from Martin Donnelly. He drove a Lotus. Him and both Javier Bardem, Brad Pitt, and their characters drove the Lotus 102. But that car was driven by Martin Donnelly, which ends up Martin Donnelly was the guy who had a crash, which they pulled from Sonny Hayes. He had the same crash at the Spanish GP in the 90s, which was Sonny Hayes' crash. They mentioned Senna. Donnelly was friends with Senna. At that time, Josh Pierce, played by Damson Idris, his crash at Monza was literally shot for shot of a race that happened in 2019, and F3, and him being on fire is called back to Romain Grosjean in Bahrain. So I can see the actual, real races they pulled from. Like the ending is Lewis Hamilton. He's F1 driver, one of the greatest of all time. The ending of the race is most likely his remake of, Abu Dhabi 21, which if you're an F1 fan, that was kind of a blight by the way it happened. But it's kind of his, reimagining of it. He's leading the race in a way. and they have through Ghost Hamilton, Silverstone 2002. See, like I can call back all these races from the moment. Like that's how I gravitated for the movie. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I got what I expected out of it. It hit the F1 fan side of me, and it hit the movie fan of me. Which is I think when you do these kind of movies, it's really hard to establish their little inconsistencies that I, like I said, turn a blind eye to. But overall, I did think it was a wonderful, wonderful movie.
Okay. I didn't know anything that he was saying. I was
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah, no, no,
uh-huh.
I'm gonna post a link
Uh-huh.
to all these, these clips I'm talking about, on our social media feeds and get y'all educated. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this world, except for Lewis Hamilton. He's the only person who I know from this environment. And I know him more of just being like a good guy who like buys an entire table at the Met Gala for like a bunch of like underprivileged people. Like I don't actually know anything about his like his stats, his anything. I don't know anything about that, but I know that he seems like a very nice man.
Not for the You don't know him for the drip?
Yes, and he can
Google
dress, and he can dress. That is true. I noticed that. I did notice that.
it.
Um, so I was kind of going in blind, but who doesn't like fast cars? That's always fun.
Mhm.
So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna strap in, have a good time. Brad Pitt does his Brad Pitt thing where he kind of just shows up and just acts like Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt acting now, like the last couple of years, he's just like, I'm just here to have fun, guys. And it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
And he has a certain charisma, that is very charming. So like, yeah, I was invested and I had a great time. It was
Mhm.
too long for me. I was like, this could be shorter.
Yeah,
That kind of pissed me off.
it could have been shorter.
But other than the length, I really enjoyed seeing Brad Pitt in this. Damson Idris, yeah, he was amazing. I want to see him in more things. I Who else was in this movie? Carrie Condon was someone I wasn't expecting because like I saw the trailers because obviously they play the trailers in like every movie theater to go see, right? But for some reason it didn't like click in my head that that was her, the woman from Banshees of Inisherin. But like it definitely was. So I was just like, oh yeah, it's you. Hey girl. I thought she was fun. And I actually liked what she brought to the movie in this like very like male dominated space. I thought she was like a very refreshing character to put in there who had a different perspective and played off of all the other characters really well. So I liked seeing her there. And Javier Bardem is just in everything. So honestly, like I was just like, okay, hey, like another movie in which you are in. And honestly, that's kind of great. Like he's been acting for years now, and like he is still getting the bag. So
Yeah.
props to you. He looked great. The suits were great. Um, but yeah, I enjoyed the story of it. Like it wasn't like a story you've never seen before. It was definitely it had its certain beats where it's like, okay, you know where this is going. But I still enjoyed the ride. And well, actually what the thing that I liked the most was how much it did seem legitimate, even if like you're not a fan of the world. It seemed like because I was looking at some behind the scenes stuff and like they had real drivers who were a part of the movie. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton was there and he was a producer on the film. But just like the facilities that they were in looked incredible. I'm like, who is paying for all this stuff? Like
Mm.
that this stuff looks so expensive. Like it looked great. Like the cars looked great. Like I don't know. It just looked they had like it seemed like they had like an air of legitimacy because they had like the real people involved.
Mm.
So like it felt real, even if like some people who are deeper fans who like know the stuff in and out might see it and be like, well, no, that's not accurate. For all the normies and the regular people who don't know anything about this, it looked legit.
Mm.
So I thought it was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the F1 as an organization, even with the concerns of the drivers not wanting to be involved sometimes, you've heard I guess Max Verstappen's voice in the race complaining about the drivers. He was really not interested in be participating in the movie. But it was a concerted effort as an organization as a whole to use this movie as a marketing tool. Like F1, the movie wasn't even the initial title for it. They were just really call it Apex or something like that. And then,
Oh,
but the whole organization got involved. Like, of course, with Lewis Hamilton's involvement, Mercedes became a big driver factor in the movie. Like that car was basically just all the same sponsors Mercedes had those 2 seasons. Those are on the cars. Like Tommy Hilfiger,
yeah.
IWC, all Mercedes sponsors were somehow thrown onto the other car, and also a lot of Mercedes. What happens at F1 is they have engine suppliers, so Mercedes is also has a team and supplies engines. So a lot of the Mercedes back teams also gave facilities in the movie. I think the wind tunnel that they showed was Williams's wind tunnel. The headquarters that for the team was McLaren's headquarters. They had a couple shots with Aston Martin, which was also driving Mercedes using Mercedes engines. So and it became a whole universal effort. And then you also have the connection. Once again, two more Lewis Hamilton connections. His current team boss and Fred Vasseur for Ferrari, and McLaren connection where he started his career with Zach Brown in there. So the Lewis Hamilton influence, is really involved. All the organizations kind of funneled through him that were associated with his network were really present in this movie as well.
That's cool. So is it that certain because they were saying like, oh, this team is Ferrari and this team is Mercedes, and I'm like, well, those are car brands, I guess. But like,
Mhm.
I didn't know. So do they own
Yeah,
like certain teams? Is that how it
for the
works?
most part, unlike NASCAR, which the like Ford and and Chevy, they don't own teams outright. They do have
Okay.
brand connections with stuff, but for the most part, the auto manufacturers, for the most part, own the team. Mercedes owns their team. Ferrari owns their team.
Okay.
McLaren, they do make automobiles. They more like supercars. They own their team. So does Aston Martin owns their team. And there are a couple of independents who don't own teams per se, automakers that don't own teams, but they get manufacturer support as far as engine suppliers from them as well. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I'm still learning. Still
yeah,
learning some. I
yeah,
learned so much when I watched this movie.
yeah.
I know what is it, a hard tire and a soft tire
The tire
are.
compounds, yeah,
Yes, because they said
yeah,
it so many times.
yeah.
Honestly, my knowledge of this world is like that scene in Charlie's Angels when they're dressing up to go to the racetrack.
Mhm.
That's my extensive knowledge of of this world.
Yeah,
But I will say there's two things that really like shocked me. The first is that the thing that they're driving with, the controller, it looks like a gamer controller. It
yeah,
doesn't look like a wheel,
yeah,
which shocked me because I'm like, what do you mean this is how you're driving this car over 200 miles an hour? Like, that's ridiculous. Um, and then the second thing, oh crap, no, I forgot. What was I? What was the second thing that like really blew my mind? Oh yeah. The teams that they like in the pit, like the people who like switch the like I don't know what I guess they're switching the tires and doing
yeah,
I'm not sure what they're doing. But the fact that like that counts against your time in terms of racing, but like you have to do it. Like there's no way that you can like avoid doing it. Because in my brain, it was like, okay, you do that and then you do the race. And then when the race is over, then you can get your car checked in. But no, it's like you constantly have to like stop and get like
yeah,
your stuff rearranged, retouched up, and like everyone has to be working like so quickly and they have to be working together. And that they show that in the first scene where that one girl like she didn't do what she was supposed to do fast enough, or I think she messed up or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I didn't realize like how like locked in you have to be if you're just doing that job. Like, so it really matters. And I think I was listening to an interview with Lewis Hamilton when he was like, it's about the driver, but it's also about the car. And I guess it's also about the team too. Like it's about like all of those different things to make you like a champion. And I
Yeah,
thought that's really interesting because there are some sports where I wouldn't think of like racing as like a team sport, but it definitely is. It revealed that in the movie. Like it definitely is one, which is shocking to me because I thought it was like tennis where you play against someone else and that's it.
Yeah, like the one good aspect, even though it's kind of dramatized, this movie did shed light that it's not just the driver a lot of times. It's the components, your pit crew, your pit wall, your race engineers, all those people you had. They showed shots of people back at their base telling them data. You have the driver saying this was happening on track. Like as most people think just racing is just a guy in the wheel driving his ass off. Nine times out of ten it's a culmination of all those parts and the car. Like if you watch real racing, you know there have been drivers who've gotten good cars, and once they go to a different team and the car is bad, they suffer for it. Like Lewis Hamilton right
Mm,
now, driving with Ferrari, spending his whole career being amazing. And now he's having a kind of so-so season because the car's not, performing to what he's used to.
mm,
Inverse, you've had, Carlos Sainz, same thing. He did well at Ferrari. Now he goes to a lower level team. He's, DNFing and engine failures, like stuff like that. Like the organization matters. And that was the one good thing I enjoyed about it. Like as far as Sonny Hayes' character, um, you could tell he has still come some combative, some brashness, but he also understands because he kind of floats through different racing series. Like as we saw him in the beginning, racing 24 Hours Daytona, at the end, going to race Baja. He at least knows how to ingrain himself in the team culture and get that side working. Because once everybody is connected on that side, they can perform their other work, which help the team succeed even better. And that's
yeah.
the one good thing he imparted onto uh uh Pierce, played by Damson Idris. Damis was kind of saying, "Oh, I'm focused on the media part, the picture part, the celebrity part, more so than I gotta structure the organization I'm supposed to be the leader of." So.
Yeah. And I thought that their dynamic was really interesting as well. And that, like, you as a driver are like racing against other people, but there's also still competition between the other person who is on your team.
Mhm.
And the way that that kept playing up during the entire film, I thought was interesting. Because I'm like, he's a young guy. Like I would think that like you would want to take someone under your wing and help them out. And it seems like Brad Pitt's character tries to do that a little bit in the beginning, and then kind of just like, actually, what I need is to, have some healing through this and kind of get what I need out of this.
Mhm.
And he doesn't really, and I mean, they have a very like antagonistic relationship for a while until I think at least until after the accident.
Mhm.
And yeah, I did think that it was interesting that like being like a sports star also means that you have to deal with like the social media, the publicity of it all, and how that can definitely distract you from the game of it all. Or
Mhm.
is this a game? I don't know how to qualify
The
this.
business of it.
The business? Yeah, sure. Sure. Because
Yeah.
like you can do both. And I feel like when you do reach a certain level, like that is a part of it. Like you are a business. You're not just like a driver.
Mhm.
And trying to balance that and being young and being successful and talented, like it definitely could mess with your head. And you can just be thinking, like, oh, okay, I got this. Like, you can't tell me anything. You're old, which was funny because it's like you are old. Like, what are you still doing here? Like, that was kind of crazy that
Yeah.
he was like, when they were like, Javier was like reading off the list of injuries, I was like, how they don't gotta pass physicals? Like, is that not a thing here? Like,
You do, and that was I think that's my biggest concern with this movie.
mm,
Um, because if Brad Pitt's character races in the 90s, he'd be in his like late 50s. The oldest person in the F1 paddock is Fernando Alonso, and I think he's in his late 40s, and he was
mm,
racing in the 2000s. And if you're not sure who Fernando Alonso is, when he pulls the strategy of destroying his car to help uh uh, Damson Idris' character earn the team points, he's the person who slaps him on the shoulder and says, "Good job." Like he's currently like Fernando Alonso is currently the oldest guy on the grid. So now you have my suspension of belief. I had to like still question it because Brad Pitt's character is like in his 50s, but he has all these injuries. He has screws in his back, and he's doing racing off roading. He's racing everywhere. So like his I like and then he hops into an F1 car, not race driving one for almost 30 years. A lot of these older F1 drivers, they do demo drives with cars they once drove, or even not even F1, but IndyCar drivers, uh they go into these cars that they once drove early in their career and also drive the new one, and that adaptation period is difficult. Even current drivers, when they adapt from cars to different year to year, it's an adjustment period. But for him not to touch the car in like 30 years, and back then it was just a wheel. Like you said, now the steering wheel is a controller, where you're literally corner through corner, you're adjusting settings in the car, and he picks up like that. I'm like, all right, that's a little bit too far,
Yeah.
That's the part I had to like, all right, you're doing too much. Pump the brakes a bit. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's real. I was just like, I don't know about that one, but okay.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, just everything that I was like really like taking all of it and just like how much you have to like do the training, like they're in that like simulation. It looks like they're like, on a volume or something where you're in the car and you're doing that. But like to like have to like having someone in your ear as you're driving so fast, like
Hmm.
incredibly fast, and then having to be communicating with them. And then I didn't know that you had to be doing extra stuff. I thought you were just driving
Yeah.
and just like chatting back to the people at base. But like that is so much. I think is that why he was like playing a little game with his hands to like test his
Well,
like
playing that
multitasking
game is testing to his reaction time.
reaction?
Because
Okay.
like when the race goes out, it doesn't go like red, yellow, green like a stop sign. Like it's literally five lights, and then they go out. Like you want to have the best reaction time to pick up as many positions in the opening lap of the race, before everybody else. But yeah, he's testing his reaction time with that. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
But just the multitasking that you have to do while you're driving incredible speeds, like I could not do it. And honestly, like when it started raining, I was just like, yeah, someone's gonna get hurt. Surprised that he didn't die. I guess that wouldn't have fit with the movie, but like, how do you, that's insane. Like, it's such an incredibly dangerous, like, profession to be doing. And honestly, when he got hurt, when Josh Pierce, which his character, got hurt,
hmm
and his mom was like really upset and she was like yelling at Brad Pitt. I was like, I feel you, ma'am, but also like this is such a dangerous job. Like, I don't know, it to me, it's like an inherited risk
yeah.
that your kid would,
A
you know.
lot of real life F1 drivers do repeatedly speak out like the awareness of potentially dying. Like a lot of not even just F1, a lot of professional race car drivers mention the fact that they could potentially die in the car. And it's like I think the last F1 death was Jules Bianchi, and that was damn Jules was 2010. He kind of hit
Okay, so
like
it's
a
been
yeah,
some
he
years.
kind of he hit a truck that was moving out of the car at like full speed, and he died. But
Oh.
yeah, either 2010 or 2012. But yeah, so they haven't had a death in professional motorsport for a long time, but it,
Hmm.
it does his crash, and then like I said, is reminiscent of Romain Grosjean, who, opening lap of a race just gets turned sideways and into like a full fence, and his car engulfs in flames. Like his hands are burnt up. Like that is the inherent risk of what these guys do on a regular basis.
Crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely crazy. Yeah, so that was really intense, but I like that they kind of just showed like every kind of aspect of like being in that world.
Hmm.
And even though even if you like don't know the racing world, I feel like a lot of those things still translates, like having, the board, like a whole bunch of people who are like investing in
Hmm.
this and who are, buttholes because there are going to be buttholes in every industry.
Yeah,
The higher up you go, the more buttholes.
yeah,
Um, and um, and also like trying to stay true to like what it is versus like the rapid changes that are going on in your industry that's universal. Dealing with social media, dealing with being in the public eye, like or having to have like a public facing way of being, dealing with sponsorships and all in the business of it. Like all of that still translates. It translates throughout sports. It translates in probably every industry in life. So I thought that that was good because at least it kind of gave you like, if you weren't familiar, it gave you somewhere to like be grounded
yeah.
in.
Yeah,
which I thought was good.
it's a good way to get fans, interested. Like for me, like I even love like shouts out to Apple for the work they did. Like they went out and like made like custom cameras. Like they did mention like they tried to shoot a lot of the scenes the same way they shot them in Top Gun, but at
Mhm.
least for this movie though they needed smaller cameras because a lot of the footage they shot was during actual races. They started shooting in 2023 during the writer's strike. Not the writer's strike, the SAG-AFTRA
Yes, I
strike.
remember,
So
yeah.
only the equity union actors, I think in Europe were able to like or crew were able to actually function when they were traveling. So what happened was, and if you're like I said, a keen-eyed F1 fan, you notice the inconsistencies in some scenes. Like some shots go from 2023 to 2024, and a lot of the cars have different paint schemes in some of the shots, so you can kind of tell in different car numbers for different drivers who switch teams. But so yeah, they kind of had to put like they mounted smaller cameras, like they made custom cameras for this movie Apple, to mount all around around the cars for them, and they shot like during parade laps and shot during mostly practice and open sessions and testing sessions, as well. Like they modified an F2 car to like an F1 car. And had them actually driving, and a lot of the shots, like for me, like that they use, I could tell when it was, like I can like because I know the sport, or I'm a fan of the sport. I was like, oh, that shot they use is familiar from the shot they showed at the race. Like, and they just digitally superimpose delivery on the car and the helmet and everything to match the Apex car. Like, I think one scene is there at Spa, which is the track where they both hit each other when he comes back from his injury. When he
Mhm.
goes uphill, I remember that shot being from another car. Same everything's the same. Like the foreground, background, but it was a different car that shot was taken from. So yeah, the technical level of work behind this movie is amazing. Um, yeah, like I do one thing I do like though is a juxtaposition of Hans Zimmer's orchestral pieces switching with more contemporary modern music
Yeah.
showcasing it also works to showcase the stylistic differences between Sonny, more classical, more old school, and then Jordan, he's more or Jonathan, more up tempo, more modern, stuff like that. But also it shows how the tempo of the race can go as a lull and then just pick up in tempo and pace during certain situations. Like I love how everything involved with the production and creation of the movie kind of interconnects.
Yes, and I was just about to say that about the music, and I feel like this is for like any sports movie that the music is so integral and like keeping pace with the energy, like giving you the energy that you need while you're watching it. It's like the score for challengers
Yeah.
or like listening to rap music while watching a basketball game. I used to do that all the time.
Yeah.
It just gives you like I don't know why exactly, but maybe it's like the tempo of the music or whatever. It just kind of brings a different energy to it. And I love that like the movie starts off with that like great Led Zeppelin song, and it's very like you said, like very tied into Sonny and his kind of point of view where he's coming from. And then you get those more modern tracks. When Josh's character comes in and how they kind of weave both of that together. And then Hans Zimmer's score is really fantastic. And the way that it's shot, especially, well, really the racing sequences are just like so well done. So like I loved all of that and how it kind of pieces together to like hype you up. So like when you're watching that stuff, you feel the stakes of it and you feel like you're invested. You feel like you're in the car with these people and that like everything's on the line for you, just like it is for the characters. I just feel like that's it's just really good storytelling.
Hmm.
There were certain editing choices that I didn't like. I don't like the fade to blacks. I'm like, we're not about to go to commercial, guys. Like, what are we doing here? And then there's one scene in the beginning where I think Javier and the team are like talking to Brad Pitt and they're cutting like every person's line. They're cutting in between every person, which I hate. It was giving me Bohemian Rhapsody flashbacks. I was like, look, when you're like shooting a high-paced conversation, like you don't need to cut in between everyone's line to show the pace of the conversation. I feel like there's other ways to do that. So I didn't like that, but it was only okay. It was okay because it was just for that one scene. It didn't happen again. So I was just like, I'm fine with it. It just happened once.
Hmm.
Um, but all the other editing choices I really enjoyed. And I because I felt like it did give the movie an energy and like a pace. And I think that like in terms of like the sound design, that last scene where, the music cuts out and it's him driving because Sonny already explained like that's when he's like in his groove.
Mhm.
Like that was such a great scene. I loved that. That was amazing.
Yeah, my favorite thing also about the movie from the behind the scenes aspect, these are people who have a connection of working together. Like the you have the editor, Stephen Marone, he's worked with Brad Pitt in Ocean's 11, in Ocean's 12, they have a working relationship as far as that, you know, of course. And then you also have Claudio Miranda, working connection with once again with Brad Pitt and with Josh Kronowski. He was the cinematographer for Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and
Mm,
he also did, of course, Top Gun Maverick, Spiderhead, Oblivion, Only Brave
mm,
with Joseph Kronowski. So these are three people who have a familiarity of working together, who know each other's styles after a length of time, and I do think that aided to it, because Brad Pitt is also listed as a producer, being top billing actor, so he does have, some cachet in what happens. So yeah, all in all, I did enjoy the movie a lot. Like I said, as a F1 fan, I thought it did its job in at least highlighting and bringing new fans into it, even though it wasn't up to like 100% of what I would, as my knowledge base of being an actual person already invested in the racing series and for a long time. But as a movie fan, still top notch from top to bottom. Like I said, I mentioned how the what's what I'm looking for, synchronicity, between director, editor, cinematographer, the technical side of, digitally adding the cars and changing cars and switching cars, and Apple's the technical side with Apple, creating new smaller cameras to get these shots very much like they did with Top Gun, but on a smaller platform. Yeah, I enjoyed every aspect of the movie. Probably up there as far as me as a racing fan, as far as movies, it would probably be second to Rush. Rush is number one, and you know, Talladega Nights, then Days of Thunder, and then Driven. Even though Driven is my guilty pleasure, you throw that crappy movie on TV, I'm gonna watch it. But yeah, I still it's a recommend for me. Anybody who's has like a small interest in it, like you said, you really only know Lewis Hamilton, from being outside of F1. But anybody who's like dabbling or has an interest in that world and wants to know a bit how it works, I would still recommend this movie.
yeah, I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I didn't like care for the relationship between Carrie's character and Brad,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
even though it was in there, I accepted it because I like her. I think she was charismatic. So it was fine. And I did kind of wish that Damson won the race at the end. That's just my personal opinion. I know it doesn't fit with the story. I know what the story was doing. I'm just saying my personal opinion as I wanted him to win. Okay. Um, but it's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. Um, but other than that, yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's so interesting and like fun to see like because technology has progressed so much that you can make movies like this where it feels incredibly immersive.
Hmm.
So I think that this is great. I'm glad that it did well, and I want to see Damson in more things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would definitely recommend this too. Even if you're not like into it, it's think of it more as an action movie, and I feel like you'll get a little bit more out of it. But or like a Top Gun, if that was a movie that you enjoyed. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. So
Yeah, yeah.
2 thumbs up.
Probably in like 20 or 30 years, we'll get F1 2 with Damson coming back as the mentor, much like
Mm.
Jerry Bruckheimer, like I mentioned Days of Thunder before, he said this movie's piqued Tom Cruise's interest to start Days of Thunder 2. So so you're gonna have
Tom
Tom Cruise in
Cruise.
like in a NASCAR movie pretty soon. So but yeah. Moving on from that, still keeping up, some little not housekeeping, but box office tidbits in regards to this movie. Um,
Mm.
Apple TV, has become almost, I wouldn't say, kind of almost auteur driven with their movie selections. Unlike other studios who also dabble in streaming, they've kind of decided like we're just gonna try and put out good projects, regardless of either how much it costs or critical draw. Of course, they lost money on a lot of like really good movies. Kills of the Flower Moon. Of course, Napoleon. The biggest bomb, the only real bomb they really had in that group was like Argyle, which I didn't think anybody's gonna watch anyway. But Kills of the
Hmm.
Flower Moon and Napoleon, they do have a track record of putting together good movies, even though they don't make back the budget they expect. Of course, they even produced Wolves, a movie we saw like a year or two ago, and they, instead of putting that on a full theatrical run, they said, "No, what, this movie is not the quality we need for that," and they just left it to streaming, which people still watch because, like I said, it's Brad Pitt, George Clooney, but you know this finally with this F1 movie, the Apple TV does have their hit. Um, and basically everybody, they just threw it all at once. They had Tim Cook on the press circuit talking about this movie. He's more of a tech guy, but he's here talking about this movie. They, kicked off their dev conference with this movie's trailer. They haptic feedback. I'm not an Apple person, but if you had an Apple, iPhone, watch this trailer, you would feel the vibrations from it. They also sent people push notifications using their to give people discounts. So they use their whole ecosystem to actually spread word for this movie. Um, so they're also, unlike Amazon, who's now has the James Bond franchise and a lot of other stuff. Apple has Amazon has committed to almost do 14 releases next year. Apple, they're kind of unsure what they're going forward and what they're doing, but this movie, kind of has said they can maybe go full in on doing theatrical rather than content mostly for streaming. And because Apple has been knocking out the park with their streaming platform TVs, they're up there as one of the best. So and this film dominated almost every aspect. It dominated the IMAX with I guess the fourth best performance ever for IMAX. Only
Mm.
other two movies I think that had IMAX releases were Sinners had an IMAX release. And I forgot there was another movie that this year came out had an IMAX release. I know I'm forgetting. Um, that Sinners had to reduce their cut, but anyway. So the fact that they're able to like take in those big screening venues as well was a good go for it. Uh, and because you really can't, with these kind of scenes, these breathtaking vistas and views. Oh, it was Mission Impossible. There we go. Sinners had to pull back the IMAX screens for Mission Impossible, but with the kind of scenes they're showing this, it's really not perceptive you know in the home. So we'll see how that goes forward. But this movie does have a lot to go to make back. It almost spent $400 million in investment for this movie. And we're not sure if that covers all the marketing and all the cast, everything. The movie only made so far this opening weekend 60 million domestically, but almost 144 million globally. So kind of almost halfway hit there to make back its budget. But we know from recently with the new Avengers slash Thunderbolts, even if you make back your budget, they'll still call it a flop, even though people enjoy it. But I think this movie does signal for Apple they can go forward and commit 100% to uh committing to theatrical releases for their films or properties, not just sticking to their streaming only platforms.
Yeah, they did it. Okay, so our next story. A judge rejects authors' claim that Meta AI training violated copyrights. So, a federal judge on Wednesday rejected a claim brought by 13 authors, including Sarah Silverman and Junot Diaz, that Meta violated their copyrights by training its AI model on their books. So the judge concluded that Meta had engaged in fair use when it used a data set of nearly 200,000 books, including the plaintiff's works, to train its llama language model. The decision follows a similar ruling issued earlier this week in a case against Anthropic over its language model Claude. So I guess this is becoming more and more of an issue because AI isn't regulated at all, I don't think,
Yeah.
really. So, like, I guess to me, it's like more cases are going to be brought because they're people, whatever, whoever these companies are, they're just like using artist kind of what is it, their voice, their images, like they're using it to train their AI to like,
Yeah. I think in this case, this was the issue of them taking authors' content. Like this case was more about books. Them
mhm.
taking books people have written and violating copyright and illegally, having putting them through a learning model and having them learn it. Um, and this, I'm not surprised by this conclusion of the judge saying it counts as fair use because technically the AI is reading it, because this more so has stemmed from Congress in like the last couple years regarding businesses and corporations as people, as entities. So the judge's ruling kind of follows that twisted wording of it's a person reading a book. People don't, when they read your book, they don't have to, pay you a copyright fee, which I really feel is really twisted logic to,
Mm.
to make that giant leap, equating an AI or a corporation training something as legalese as an individual, which is stupid. So,
Yeah, they're skating around. They're like walking the finest of lines to try to
yeah,
make that work.
yeah.
They really need to do something about that. Like they need to stop putting some regulations on these technologies because like who knows where and I think that's the scariest part. It's like no one knows where this can go.
Yeah. Yeah, they're
Like
already like reporting, like even with this what the WGA strike like last year, like there are less writers in Hollywood
yeah,
now.
that was one of our stories. We could talk about it right now. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, there aren't as many jobs offered to writers because they're using all of these programs to do the writing. And it's like, you still need people to do that. Like, it's really crazy and unfortunate because it's like you're gonna miss out on like quality scripts. You're gonna miss out
Hmm.
on like iconic dialogue. Like, I'll talk about it later, but like some movies that have the most iconic dialogues that you remember 60 years plus and like
Hmm.
a machine can't do that. So it's just really I just hate the like businessy men from wherever taking over Hollywood and just like make trying to make it such a business. And it's like that's not I we've already talked about this so many times. I'm not gonna get back into it, but I'm just saying like that's not what this industry is. You can't do that here.
Yeah.
Like, stop.
I mean, since we already brought it up, might as well continue with the the writers, their concerns. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, well, let me pull up a story now because I need to oh, it's over here. Hold
Yeah. No worry, I'll make the cut and paste. So
on. Right. So the Writers Guild West reported that writers' earnings are up, but their jobs keep disappearing. So the total earnings rose to 12.7%. Sorry, rose from 12.7% to 1.5 billion, recovering from the strikes. And but only 5,228 writers report income in 2024 versus 6,910 in pre-strike 2022, a devastating 24.3% decline over 2 years. And that TV and streaming jobs got hit the hardest. And that film work it was a little bit more resilient, but it still dropped 16% from the pre-strike levels. So fewer writers are working now than in pre-strike 2022. So they're saying that it isn't temporary recovery, but permanent downsizing. So for all those like me who wanted to get into screenwriting, like the jobs are just not there. And
yeah.
it was already difficult to get into it regardless.
Yeah.
So it's just they just added like another like level of difficulty if that's what you wanted to do. So
Yeah, being a creative right now is hard because I'm not going to deny the fact the use of AI is can be, or learning models or limited language models are, it's helpful, like it's as a tool. There are sometimes when I'm writing paragraphs, whatever, writing some stuff, I'll write something and like, know what? ChatGPT, clean this up for me, change, my tone a bit. Let me get difference. And then I'll take I'll look at what ChatGPT come with. I was like, oh, that kind of works like cousin. I will pick and choose what works, what doesn't work for what I'm like, trying to convey. I use it in that way. Or if I'm trying to code something, and I'm having trouble scripting a code, I'll put my code in ChatGPT, like, can you tweak this out for me and see what works and doesn't work. And sometimes with coding, it's funny. You'd think a computer would know how to code. Like sometimes I take the code from ChatGPT, doesn't work when I'm in my software. But being a creative is hard because you mentioned it from the writer side. I mean, I know for me as an editor, like even trying to become an editor, like I went to CNN once talking to editors there, and I knew stuff they didn't do, but through connections they got the job. And then also now a lot of like Adobe has pushed out a lot of like automatic editing software, not just auto tweaking of your voice. Like if you want to get your hems and haws and your awkward pauses out, no, it'll now also read your shots and edit a sequence for you. Like there's no magic anymore to a degree
Mm,
in a lot of these creative fields. Like even when it comes to trying to do graphic design work, some people just go like instead of looking for a graphic designer, like people's like, oh, I could just run this in Canva, not Canva, or just run this through ChatGPT or Midjourney and like create a logo or whatever. And I'll look at the logo they got from the thing. I'm like, bro, that's not even an S. Why is your company's name spelled wrong? They go, but it looks good. So as a creative, this AI thing is really disheartening. So
yeah. Sad.
yeah. Moving on from that. So still sticking with the creative realm, but with a different twist. Of course, one of the companies that is also involved in one of these lawsuits, with Midjourney and AI is Disney. But Disney is on right now. This article is more focused on how they've changing how they greenlight shows now. They recently had the UCLA Entertainment Symposium, and the Disney Entertainment co-chair broke down their new decision uh, uh, making pipeline for approval for shows. So uh, Disney kind of has like the authority to like cut up their brands as Diana Walden, who is the co-chair of Disney Entertainment, just which of Disney Entertainment, that's what she attributed to their success because they own so many brands. They're able to kind of slice them up a bit and kind of diversify. She said teams are small enough to specialize in different types of stories. Um, she last year her their portfolio covered, of course, Hulu, Disney Plus, FX, of course, 20th Century Studios, which they bought from Fox, along with Hulu and FX. You know, various Disney branded television, and through that, that diversification and that branch, they were able to record 60 Emmy wins from like one company. That is amazing. It's also coming off the string of success. You have Shogun, you have The Bear, you have Only Murders in the Building. Of course, you have Abbott in Elementary, and that's not even just covering their animated and cinematic properties. So, their diversification into different products, different branding, and basically, I like view Disney as like Smog from like Lord of the Rings. That's relation to Smog, just sitting on a hoard of gold of IPs and able to pick and choose and diversify what they want to do. And I think now Disney kind of has a bit more figured out how they're able to diversify what they want to distribute to certain properties. Like even though you have Disney Plus, when you go to FX, certain properties are shown on FX, certain properties are shown on Hulu, certain products are shown on ABC or terrestrial stations. They're able to tailor each streaming platform to the target audience they were trying to target right now. So it helps their decision making a lot more easier now, which, kudos to them. They finally figured it out. Uh, but they're also like now also able to, go back now and introduce some of their older shows to newer viewers, which is always a boon for them because then they don't have to make new shows. Like they mentioned, being able to now show reruns of Grey's Anatomy or, Modern Family to younger fans, which is a plus because before that was a goal for any show to get into syndication. When Friends got syndicated, it made more money. Office got syndicated, made more money. When Seinfeld got syndicated, made money. But at least now the syndication is on their streaming platform, so they still keep the money. So, it's a boon for Disney in a way.
And our last story is that HBO is moving to a performance-based model for their bonuses for the talent. So a lot of other streaming platforms are also doing the same thing where you will only like a talent will only get paid a bonus if the in terms of like how many people are watching it, if the show gets renewed, things of that nature. Where before it's like you would just get paid ahead, and then, like, once the movie was out, I believe this is right, it might not be right, but you would also get, like, a bonus after the movie had come out or whatever. But now it's like, no, like, we need to see the numbers on it before you can, like, get a bonus. And I feel like this will probably hurt the actors who aren't, like, the A-list, like, who are just, like, they're like gigging actors. I don't know if they get paid bonuses anyway. I'm not really sure how that works. They might just get like a paycheck and that's it. Um, so maybe this is just affecting like the top tier actors. And if it's just affecting them, then I guess my feeling about it is like, well, they get paid so much money anyway. So like I feel like is it I think it will still do something to them because again, unless you're like the A-list of the A-list, like if you're a Brad Pitt or something like that, like you're not making oodles and noodles of dollars. Like even if you are very popular and famous, you're probably not making that much money still, or at least not the amount of money that you need to like get to keep up the lifestyle that you have. So I'm not really sure who this affects the most, but I do find it interesting that they're moving away from it, from just like, just giving your actors money because, they showed up every day and they did their jobs and stuff. But I don't know. It is just giving like we're trying to conserve money. And like everything that the strikes were for is kind of just like it's kind of like cutting corners still where it's like okay we have to address the concerns of the strike so we make sure that that doesn't happen again, but also we don't want to give people money or spend a lot of money or take any risk or whatever, and we're just gonna like Mr. Krabs it and just like he hoard as much money as possible. It's incredibly frustrating. I don't know. It's yeah.
Yeah, it's and watched a couple interviews from a lot of actors, and it's not even like the super mainstream actors, so like your everyday actors. You kind of get a couple bit roles, like 5 episodes
Mm,
on a show, and they've mentioned in the past, like before streaming, those residuals when the shows get aired on other networks, they can live off that for like a long time. And then now
mhm.
they're talking about with streaming, they don't get that anymore. It's used like pennies. Before you could live off, you could work for like 5 years, doing a bunch of different shows and live a comfortable lifestyle just off your residuals. Now that's like not possible anymore with the world of streaming. And that's also due to these companies not wanting to disclose the numbers of what the amount of viewers they're showing. They're always going to say we have to charge more, but they don't show how much, people are viewing their content. So it's
Mhm.
yeah. I feel like it's with all this going on, like Hollywood and the powers that be are trying to fight two battles. Like it's kind of fighting themselves. They're biting their
Yeah.
own foot. They're trying to battle with, these companies and say, "Oh, AI is destroying our creativity," but then you want to pay the creatives, the talent. So to quote Nas, is it Uchi Wally or is it one mic? You can't have it both ways. You gotta you gotta figure it out what you're for. So
Yep. Okay, let's talk about what we've been watching this week.
man, I have been, recatching up on a lot of sleep. I've been watching, of course, this past weekend, of course, a race at Atlanta. Got to witness that, of course, big F1 fan, talk about the movie, watch a lot of F1 racing. So it's kind of serendipitous for me the whole weekend to kind of just ingratiate myself in a lot of motorsports. Um, but 4th of July is coming up, big weekend, big movie weekend. So probably gonna go out and probably rewatch this movie, or you know what, I might decide I want to go watch Lilo and Stitch. Even though
Ooh.
I'm kind of still iffy on it. The reviews have been good, not just with that, but I guess How to Train Your Dragon as well. I might go, take a peek at that and talk about it next week. So yeah.
Um, I watched The Godfather. The Godfather.
Really?
Yes. So I have this wonderful podcast that I love. But I also have like a movie club with my friends.
Hmm.
And so we pick like a movie or whatever to watch together, and then we'll all come at like the end of the month and discuss it. So I started watching that. That was one of the movies that we chose, the first, The Godfather and The Godfather Part Two. So I watched the first one. I did it in chunks because it's a very long movie. But it was so good. Like some movies that you hear are like they're classics and they're amazing and they change cinema and like they're iconic. And then you watch them and you're like, oh, okay. Like I like like I sort of see what you mean. But it doesn't like hit really. Um, this one, this one hits. Like this one is like I understand why everyone's so obsessed with it. Like it makes total sense to me. It makes so much sense why it's iconic. Like it really hooks you in, and then you're just like in it the whole time. You're just like, yep, and then what happened? And oh my God, that and it's like little things. And I can't believe that Francis Ford Coppola was like a young, like relatively new director making this
Hmm.
kind of movie, and that Al Pacino, that this was like his first role that he ever did. Like that's what I'm talking about talent. Like what I'm talking about, like you cannot manufacture this kind of thing. Like, and Francis Ford Coppola is crazy right now. Like who knows what he's doing? But like in his prime, like he was absolutely killing it. So I felt like when I was watching it, like the dialogue was so good and it was funny. Like they were saying certain things like leave the gun, take the cannolis. Like that's so good. Like that's perfect. And then the slow push in on Michael when you can see him starting to turn and start to become the Godfather as they're making the plans, the whole scene in the restaurant, like perfect, like actually great. The racism sucks. The way they treat women sucks.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to put that to one side and say it's a movie about the Italian mafia. It's a movie that was made in the early 70s. Like, let me just put that to one side and just focus on the movie as it is. And it's incredible. Like, it's so good. Like, there's something about Al Pacino's eyes. Like, I don't know what they are.
It was like the
Anyways,
the bug eye thing he does. He just open like
yes, but they're
yeah,
so like big and expressive and they say absolutely everything because the character doesn't even like talk a whole bunch. It's like all through his eyes. And
yeah.
like that last scene is perfect when he tells Kay that he didn't kill what is his name? I was calling Carmi. I was like, no, that's the beef. I mean, that's that's not the beef. What's that movie? That's that show called?
What, Carmi? That is the
That's not his
beef.
name though. That's the beef?
Yeah, Carmen,
No.
Carmen. Like yeah.
That's what the show. No, Beef is a separate show. Beef is
What are you talking about?
wait,
Because you mentioned
what
the
am I
beef,
talking
so I'm
about?
yeah. I'm like,
No, I said Carmi, and I was like, oh no, that's from the bear. Sorry, excuse
oh,
me.
okay,
That's
yeah.
the
Oh, the
bear's
bear.
character. That's the
Yeah,
main
yeah.
character from Beef is a separate show.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
but that's not the character's name. The character who's his sister's husband.
Mm.
His name is it Carlo? Carlos? Whatever. He tells her like he didn't kill him, and then you can see her face as like the other people walk in and kiss the ring. I was like, that's sexy. Like it is insane how people just get murdered and like nobody cares. Like that's crazy. Like they'll just be killing people and just be like, okay, and yeah, I have an appointment at 2 o'clock, and let me get in the car and get ready to go. It's like no one cares. And I'm like, yeah, okay, so a person just died. Like, what are we gonna do about that?
Just ignore it. Just if it happens, kind of thing.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
10 out of 10. And I started watching the part two. So
Hmm.
I'm gonna get through that. Great movie.
Well, see, now that you mentioned, you were talking about The Godfather, and
Hmm.
but I was like, what? Something did come to my head that I did watch. I did watch a video on Joaquin Phoenix and his career and stuff like that. It was a
Oh,
documentary. Um, and it got me thinking. Um, would Leonardo DiCaprio have a career if River Phoenix never died?
I feel like you've mentioned that before,
Have
actually.
I mentioned it before?
Yeah, I think you have. I think
Really?
you've. I think you haven't even posited it. You were just saying that as a statement. You
Oh,
were like,
man.
I think if River Phoenix was still alive, then
Well, I do think so.
DiCaprio
You know
would.
what? I'm gonna reiterate that. I do think so because two major film roles Leo DiCaprio got is after River Phoenix died. And then he was in contention at one point for if he did Titanic and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So if it wasn't if River Phoenix died, we don't get Leo DiCaprio. But anyway, but yeah, it was a documentary covering Joaquin's life and his career path and how that awkward period where everybody thought he was going crazy when it was just for that fake mockumentary and people thought he
Yeah,
was legit like
yeah, I remember that.
fucking around with people. And then it covered also how it was kind of him turned up like 11 or 12, but it also covered how in post, especially it purely focused on his life and career after her, like where he met Rooney Mara, and
Mm,
how his career and everything changed. I mean, Joaquin is still Joaquin. He did cause problems on Napoleon, but he hasn't been as erratic as he once was. It was a good documentary
yeah,
to
sure.
watch. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm I am glad that we are phasing out that kind of actor, the kind of methody, insane person who just
yeah,
like does insane things.
yeah.
I'm kind of glad that we are phasing that out, and the new crop of actors that we have are much more grounded. They still work as hard and they're still talented, but they're not going to be doing the absolute most.
Yeah.
Like like they're sensible, and
Yeah.
I think that that's good. I think that it's good that we've learned the lessons from that generation and we moved on. In terms of Leonardo DiCaprio, like I still think he's a great actor. I just think that I don't know. I feel like we talked about this so many times. I just felt like after the Oscar, he kind of just was like, I think I'm gonna,
Ghost.
oh yeah, I'm gonna coast. I am excited to see him in the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie, though. I think he is gonna be doing a great job.
Mm.
He always works with great directors, so it's not like an excuse if his performance isn't like amazing. And I still think his performance in Killers of the Flower Moon was
Oh,
good.
amazing, amazing, amazing.
It just wasn't like a performance that was so big that like you, in terms of like the Robert De Niro character, where he was giving you a lot more. And it was also
Yeah.
just shocking because Robert De Niro had not been really acting before in the latter years. So he's still a great actor. Like, we still have the great actors. I just think that I'm glad that Joaquin is doing like the Ari Aster like weird kind of thing. I think that that's pretty cool because I think that matches his energy. And
Yeah,
sometimes you just need to meet someone who matches your freak. You know what I'm saying? So like,
that auteur driven
yeah,
side is
it's a
good
good
work
it's
for
a
him.
good collaboration. I think that I'm excited to see Eddington whenever that comes out. I think it works.
Yeah.
So, yep. All right. Well, that's it from us this week. We hope that you're all taking care of yourselves and doing well. Make sure to check out all of our social media, support us if you can, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Goodbye.
Au revoir.